Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings to the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We are now in stanza 70 looking at two little poems, The Dead Emperor and As the Greeks Signal Flame. Both of these are tribute poems, and so we'll kind of see them, although not necessarily as a pair, but we've seen this before, that especially as Whitman's life starts to come to its end, he's going to begin to try to pay respect and homage to any number of folks. You've seen this in the poems of stanza 70. This poem is number 52 of the 58 of stanza 70, and so obviously we're coming towards the end of this cluster. Now, the Dead Emperor he's talking about is William I, and of course, this is going to make this a somewhat controversial poem, no question. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Talks with Walt, our playlist, from the inscriptions up to and including a set of introductory comments for stanza 70, and we just finished with Latent Boughs Alone. Now, our Nortons will give us some information, especially because this poem comes with a footnote at the end of the poem that it was published March the 10th of 1888. Now, this poem, published first in the New York Herald of March the 10th, 1888, manuscripts and rough drafts and printers' drafts will be the way that this poem has been studied. Now, the emperor that we're speaking here, as we said, is William I of Germany. He died in Berlin March the 9th, 1888. Now, to his friends, Whitman's friends, who protested this salute, Whitman replied, quote, "Too many of the fellows forget that I include emperors, lords, kingdoms, as well as presidents, workmen, and republics." I love this quote because it reminds us of what we have said from the very beginning of our study of Leaves of Grass, that Whitman is a great integralist thinker. He's a great inclusivist. He's going to include everybody and everything in Leaves of Grass, which is one more reason why we love to read it. Now, you'll remember Emperor from Broadway pageant number 2 and his use of the word there. Today, with bending head and eyes, thou too, Columbia. It's interesting that he uses that word. Less for the mighty crown laid low in sorrow, less for the emperor, thy true condolence breathest. Sendest out over many a salt sea mile, mourning a good old man, a faithful shepherd, patriot. Now, of course, controversial to call William I a patriot, to call him faithful, and to call him a shepherd for sure. But be that as it may, notice that he calls him a good old man. And I think this is part of it. I think as Whitman grew older, he began to become more concerned about how he would be treated, not only in his death, but after his death. And so he began to pay attention to some of the great lives. We've seen Grant mentioned, of course, and others. And because that's the case, I think he's going to write a few of these poems suggesting, you know what, let's give respect to everyone. And I think that's really the 2A message here. All people are worthy of respect, especially in death. And to be, interestingly, as often is the case in some of these tribute types of poems, the name is not mentioned. That is to say, the emperor is not actually mentioned in the poem by name, which is fascinating, much like other tribute poems. And then, of course, at 3A, all of the tribute poems, and we'll mention the one to come on Whittier, that's the next poem. And finally, at 3B, how about this for a way to own this poem? Who that is powerful and has died recently deserves the respect that is being shown here in your estimation? And do you have a problem with the fact, knowing your history, that he would celebrate this individual, this emperor? Thank you.